At 18, my family left me behind on vacation as a life lesson. My uncle tossed me $20 and said, "You'll learn responsibility." I stayed quiet and got to work. 13 years later, they walked into my company begging for help. I didn't even stand. I simply said, "Security will show you out." They called it a life lesson. I called it abandonment. My name is Adam, and I'm 31 now. But back then, I was just an awkward, quiet 18-year-old, fresh out of high school with zero confidence and a backpack full of community college brochures. I wasn't a troublemaker or rebellious. I just wasn't what my family wanted. I wasn't charismatic like my cousin Tyler or athletic like my younger brother James. I didn't party, didn't drink, and never cracked jokes at the dinner table. I mostly kept to myself, reading in quiet corners. My uncle, of course, said that meant I was soft and needed to learn how the real world worked. That's probably what led to the moment that flipped my life upside down. We were supposed to go on a family vacation to Myrtle Beach, 2 packed SUVs, 3 generations crammed into hotel rooms, coolers of soda, and sand-stuck flip-flops. I didn't even want to go, but Mom said it would be good for me, that I should try to bond with my cousins. She always looked at me like I was broken, like I needed fixing, and maybe this trip would do it. The morning we left, I got to the house early. I even double-checked the packing list twice. But when I walked up the driveway, my uncle, this loud, ex-military, tough-love type, just smirked at me and said, "You're not coming." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. He tossed me a crumpled $20 bill. "Figure it out. Consider it a life lesson in responsibility." Then he got in the driver's seat, cranked the music, and backed out. I stood there, stunned, watching both cars disappear down the road. Not a single window rolled down to say goodbye. My mom didn't text. My brother didn't look back. No one did. I remember just sitting on the curb, gripping that $20, wondering if this was real. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe there wasn't enough room. Maybe it was some bizarre test. Maybe they were planning to turn around in 5 minutes and yell, "Gotcha!" They didn't. No phone call, no explanation, nothing. I had no car, no key to the house, they'd already locked it, and my phone battery was at 9%. The only thing in my backpack besides clothes was a dog-eared copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad I'd picked up from a thrift store, half out of curiosity and half because it was the cheapest book on the shelf. I walked 3 miles to a 24-hour diner and nursed a coffee I couldn't afford for 6 hours, while my phone slowly died. The waitress, an older woman named Jackie, eventually asked if I was okay. I don't know why, but I told her everything, probably because she didn't look at me like I was pathetic. She nodded along, didn't interrupt, and when I was finished, she simply said, "So what are you going to do now?" That question stuck. I slept in a bus terminal that night. No family, no plan, just me and a plastic bag holding my clothes. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't upset, but because I was too numb to feel anything yet. The next morning, I walked back to town and got a job washing dishes at a greasy diner Jackie recommended. The pay was terrible, the hours long, and the boss was an ex-convict who shouted more than he spoke. But I worked hard every single day. I saved every cent. I kept reading that one book over and over again at night until the cover fell off and I started memorizing passages. When my family came back a week later, no one reached out. Not even a, "Where were you?" from my mother. When I finally got home, my key still didn't work. They'd changed the locks. I later learned through a cousin's Facebook post that they thought I'd stormed off and that I was too prideful to apologize. So I didn't. I didn't call, I didn't knock, I didn't explain. I just left. For the next 2 years, I couch hopped, worked odd jobs, and took free online courses at public libraries. I picked up skills wherever I could. Freelance design, coding, digital marketing. I built a website for a friend's uncle, then another, and slowly started making a name for myself. By 21, I had my own freelance business. By 24, I'd built a team. By 27, I owned the building my first job had rejected me from. By 30, I was the CEO of a boutique tech firm that serviced some of the top companies in the city. No loans, no partners, no family money. Just grit, just pain repurposed. Then, 13 years after I was left on that driveway like a discarded suitcase, they walked into my lobby. It was surreal. My uncle's hair was thinner. His ego wasn't. My mom stood beside him, nervously clutching a handbag I'd seen her flaunt in photos during their European cruise. My brother James looked different too. Tired, broke, desperate. And behind them, a woman I didn't recognize right away, until I remembered my cousin's wedding announcement. His new wife. They stood in the gleaming lobby of my office. Marble floors, open ceilings, minimalist design, a clean contrast to the chaos I'd come from. They didn't recognize me at first. I was behind the front desk talking to my assistant, but when I turned, the silence in the room went ice cold. My uncle took a hesitant step forward. "You're Adam?" he said. I didn't respond. My mother opened her mouth. "Honey, I raised a hand. "You're here for funding, aren't you?" They went pale. My brother chuckled nervously. "Look, man, it's not like that, okay? It's just we had some tough times and we heard you." I didn't even bother to stand up. I just nodded toward my assistant. "Security will show you out." They didn't move right away. For a second, I wondered if they were even breathing. My mother's mouth hung slightly open, her hand still clutching that worn designer purse like it was a lifeline. My uncle looked confused, like his brain couldn't compute the fact that the shy, awkward kid they once mocked was now the one in control. James blinked twice, then tried to regain composure with a shaky laugh. "Come on, man. You're really going to kick your own family out? We just want to talk." I didn't respond. 2 security officers approached quietly from the elevator bay. Tall, polite, dressed sharper than my uncle had probably ever been in his life. One of them, Marcus, a former Marine with a kind heart and zero tolerance for nonsense, looked at me before speaking. "Problem here, Mr. Lawson?" Mr. Lawson. That always hit them like a slap. They used to call me Liability Lawson, a nickname my uncle had coined because, according to him, I was nothing but a burden. Now I was Mr. Lawson, the guy with the nameplate on the glass wall upstairs, the guy who owned the building their mortgage lender worked out of. I finally stood, not out of anger, not to make a scene, just so they could see how much taller I stood now, how I didn't flinch, how I didn't shrink under their gaze like I used to at dinner tables and holidays and Sunday backyard barbecues. "Escort them out, please," I said calmly. My mom's voice cracked. "Adam, please, just listen." I stared at her. I thought about every birthday where she handed me a gift receipt and told me to pick something less boring. Every school event. She skipped for brunch with her friends. Every time she made excuses for the way my uncle treated me. He means well. He's old school. You just take things too seriously. My cousin's voice echoed in my head from all those years ago. You're not like us. That's why nobody wants you around. And maybe that was true. I wasn't like them. That was the point. I took a breath and spoke softly but with clarity. 13 years ago, you thought it was funny to leave me behind. No calls, no messages, just $20 and a smirk. You never even asked if I made it home. My mom looked away. My uncle scoffed. "It wasn't that deep, kid. It was a joke." "No," I interrupted. "It was a message. That I wasn't one of you. That I didn't belong. That I was disposable." I turned to my brother. "And you? You watched. You laughed." He shook his head. "We were stupid. We didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing." Security waited patiently. My staff watched from behind glass doors, pretending not to eavesdrop. I didn't care. Let them hear it. Let them all hear it. "You said you came to talk," I said. "But you didn't call ahead. You didn't write. You didn't try to reconnect. You walked into my building like it was a family barbecue, expecting I'd smile and open my wallet. That's not how this works." I glanced at Marcus and nodded. My uncle's face turned red. "You think you're better than us now because you got lucky? Got some startup money and now you're hot stuff?" "No," I replied. "I think I'm not stupid enough to fund the same people who left me stranded in a bus terminal with nothing but $20 and a worn-out copy of a used book. I'm not better than you. I'm just done pretending I need you." That's when my mother broke. Tears welled up. "I didn't know they were going to do that," she whispered. "I swear I didn't. You didn't stop them either." And that was the final word. Security stepped forward, gently guiding them toward the door. My uncle muttered something under his breath, but no one cared. James kept looking back like he wanted to say more, but he never did. They left. I stood there for a long moment afterward, letting the silence soak in. My assistant approached quietly. "Want me to block them from entering again?" "No," I said, turning back toward my office. "They won't be back." Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment, looking out over the city from a window they'd never see. I poured a drink and opened a worn shoebox I kept tucked in a drawer. Inside was the same $20 bill my uncle gave me all those years ago. Creased, faded, and framed in glass. I'd kept it, not as a reminder of them, but as a marker, a turning point. The day I stopped waiting for approval and started building my own world. That night, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was proving anything to anyone. Not them, not the world, not even myself. It didn't end there, not really. That night in the office lobby might have been the climax for them, but for me, it was just another ripple in a very long wave. You don't spend over a decade clawing your way out of a hole your own family shoved you into without scars. Some are visible, like the tiny sliver of a burn on my hand from my second job at a food truck that never passed inspection. Most aren't. I didn't expect to hear from them again. I assumed once they realized I wasn't bluffing, they'd disappear back into whatever mess they'd created for themselves. But they didn't. 3 days later, I got a letter, an actual handwritten letter, something none of them had sent me in over a decade. It was from my cousin Tyler, the same golden boy who used to shove me into the pool at family cookouts, then laugh when I couldn't find my glasses underwater. His penmanship hadn't changed since middle school. Neither had his arrogance. He wrote that he heard about what happened and that the whole thing was a misunderstanding. He said he and his new wife had recently hit some business struggles and could really use a short-term investment, just until things stabilized. He framed it like a win-win. I'd get equity, and they'd get breathing room. At the end, he added a little gem that still makes me shake my head. "Come on, man. We're family. We've all done dumb things. No need to hold a grudge this long." I didn't respond. The following week, my mother tried texting me. She didn't apologize, at least not directly. It was more of a vague half-admission. "I know you probably still blame me. I didn't know they were going to leave you. I swear I was asleep in the car then. Can we meet? Just coffee. No talk of money. Just you and me." I stared at it for a long time. The younger version of me would have jumped at it, would have run back for any scrap of warmth, any chance to be seen. But I'd learned something over the years. Guilt is not the same as change, and silence in the face of cruelty is still complicity. She hadn't stood up for me, not then, not ever. So again, I didn't respond. A few days later, I got another visitor at work, but this time they didn't come through the front doors. It was Marcus, the the security guy who buzzed my office. "Hey, sorry to bother you. There's someone downstairs who says she's your grandmother." That stopped me. My grandmother, my dad's mother, had always been the quiet one in the family. She was soft-spoken, old school, always tucked away in the background of family events, knitting or humming hymns. She'd never been unkind to me, but she never intervened either. I told Marcus to let her up. She walked in slowly, with a cane and a cloth purse that looked older than I was. I stood to greet her, more out of habit than emotion, and she gave me a long, measured look before sitting down across from my desk. "Adam," she said, her voice thin but clear, "you look just like your father did at this age." I didn't know how to respond to that. I hadn't thought about my dad in years. He passed when I was 10. His absence was the first crack in the family wall, the first signal that things would never be whole again. After he died, everything shifted. My mom became colder, my uncle louder, the cousins meaner, and me? I just got quieter. "I heard what happened," she continued. "They told me you embarrassed them." I raised an eyebrow. "Embarrassed?" She gave me a tired smile. "That's the word they used. Said you threw them out of your office like criminals." I leaned back. "Did they also mention the part where they left me on the curb with $20 and no way home?" She looked down at her hands. "I remember. I told your mother to call you. She didn't. Said you needed to learn your place." The silence between us stretched for what felt like minutes. "I'm not here to defend them," she said quietly. "I came because I thought maybe you'd want to know what's going on." "Why would I?" "Because whether you believe it or not, they're unraveling. James is out of work. Your uncle mortgaged the house for a failed business venture. Your cousin's marriage is on the rocks. And your mother." She paused. "Your mother's health isn't what it used to be." I stayed quiet, not out of cruelty, but because I genuinely didn't know how to respond. Was I supposed to feel guilt? Sadness? Relief? "I know they hurt you," she said, almost pleading. "But don't become what they were." That one cut deeper than expected. After she left, I sat in my office long after the sun had gone down. I didn't work. I didn't take calls. I just sat there, thinking about everything. About who I was when they left me, and who I'd become since. That night I went home and opened an old box from under my bed. Inside were scraps of my old life. Rejected college letters, my first pay stub, the old bus ticket from the terminal I slept in. And tucked beneath it all was a photograph. Me at maybe 12 years old, standing awkwardly between my mom and dad. He had his hand on my shoulder. She was smiling, barely. It was the last photo we ever took together. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe because part of me still wished she'd been different. Kinder, braver, the kind of mother who didn't watch her son get left behind like garbage and shrug it off as necessary. The next morning I drafted an email, short, clinical. "I heard about your situation. I hope things improve. I do not wish to reconnect at this time. Please do not show up." Unannounced again. I stared at the screen for a long time before hitting send, but I didn't block her. Not yet, because some part of me, deep down, still wanted her to say something real, something honest. Not excuses, not manipulations. An apology. It didn't come, but something else did. 3 weeks later, James showed up again, alone. And he wasn't asking, for money this time. He was begging for a job. I hadn't seen James alone since we were teenagers. Back then, he was my shadow, always tagging along but never standing up. He'd laugh with the others when they mocked me, but never led the charge, himself. I used to think he was just following the crowd. Now I saw that he was the crowd. He just had a quieter way of making people feel small. When Marcus buzzed to say he was downstairs again, I almost told him to send James away like the rest. But something in my gut said, not yet. So I told him to wait. I walked out of my office and rode the elevator down to the lobby myself. I didn't want to give him the power of walking into my space again. If this was going to happen, it would be on neutral ground. He looked thinner than I remembered, hair slightly receding, a cheap blazer that didn't quite fit, shoes that had seen better days. He gave me this sheepish smile, like we were old friends meeting by coincidence. "Hey, Adam," he said, hands in his pockets. "James, you look good. Place is... wow." I didn't respond, just crossed my arms and waited for him to get to the point. He shuffled his feet awkwardly. "Look, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I'm out of options. I got laid off last year and I've been bouncing between temp work and Uber shifts. Jen left a few months ago. She said she couldn't deal with the instability anymore. I'm late on everything." I nodded once, still said nothing. He glanced around the lobby, then back at me. "I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I heard you're expanding, and I figured maybe there's something I can do. Data entry, admin, whatever. Just something." He didn't fake humility, I'll give him that. But there was something hollow in the way he spoke, like he wasn't here to right a wrong, just to survive. I thought back to that summer I turned 19 when I'd emailed them asking if I could crash on his couch for a few days. He never responded, but I saw that he'd read it. I remembered sitting outside a 24-hour laundromat that night, pretending I was just waiting for someone while people walked by, not knowing I had nowhere to go. "You remember when I asked you for help once?" I asked him quietly. His eyes flickered. "I do. You didn't answer." He sighed. "I was young, stupid." "No," I said calmly. "You were scared of being associated with me. You thought helping me would drag you down. I was wrong." I looked at him hard. "You were cruel." He swallowed. "I know." And for a second, just a second, I thought I saw something crack. Some part of him that actually felt ashamed. "I've changed," he added. "I don't expect a handout. Just a chance." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. I told him to come in the next morning and speak to HR. If he passed their vetting process and background check, like everyone else, I'd give him a 30-day contract. No special treatment, no shortcuts. He thanked me twice, but I could see it in his face. He thought this meant we were good again, that the slate had been wiped clean. It wasn't. Over the next few weeks, James started showing up to work on time, quiet, professional. He kept to himself, didn't use my name, didn't drop our relation to anyone. HR placed him in data cleanup, tedious stuff but necessary, and he was good at it. Efficient, detail-oriented. But one day, about 6 weeks in, I got a knock on my door. It was my executive assistant. She had a printed email in her hand. "I thought you'd want to see this." The email was from James to a mid-level manager, CCing a few team leads. In it, he casually mentioned his close relationship with the founder and hinted that he was helping influence some executive decisions. Subtle but strategic, a way to position himself for a faster promotion. I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't about the job. It wasn't even about the lie. It was that I knew this pattern. The manipulation disguised as humility, the positioning, the passive power plays, the way my family always operated, smiling while planting a knife. I called him into my office that afternoon. He walked in with a cautious smile. "Hey, everything okay?" I handed him the email. His smile faltered. "Look, it's not what it seems." "You were doing well," I cut in. "You kept your head down. You followed the rules. Why ruin it?" "I was just trying to..." "No," I said. "You were trying to climb. using me as the ladder. Silence. I gave you a job, I continued. Not because I forgave you, but because I wanted to see if you'd learned. If you understood what it meant to earn something on your own. He said nothing. You haven't changed. You've just gotten better at pretending. I didn't yell. I didn't lecture. I just slid a termination letter across the desk. Effective immediately, I said. He stared at it like it was a foreign language. You can't be serious. I looked him in the eye. This company doesn't reward the behavior that broke me. I built this place to be everything our family wasn't. His voice cracked. I needed this job. You needed to change, you didn't. I walked to the door and opened it for him. He didn't argue, didn't plead. But as he left, I heard him mutter under his breath, just loud enough for me to catch it. You'll be alone forever, you know that? I paused. Then I smiled. I've been alone before, I said. It turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. He walked out, and that was the last time I saw him. Years passed. I never reconnected with my mother. She sent a few more letters, birthday cards with long notes, all signed Love, Mom. But none of them ever said the words I needed to hear. Not really. No apology, just guilt dressed up as affection. Eventually, I stopped opening them. I built my life without them. I hired people who believed in kindness and fairness. I mentored kids who reminded me of me, quiet, overlooked, hungry, for a chance. I donated to shelters, funded scholarships, wrote anonymous checks to kids trying to get out of the same cycle I escaped. And one night, alone in my apartment, I took out that framed $20 bill again. The edges were brittle now. The glass was scratched, but it still looked the same. I thought about throwing it away, but then I remembered that bus terminal, that diner, Jackie's question. So what are you going to do now? That $20 was the beginning of everything. The worst day of my life, and the most important. I hung it up on my office wall, right next to my first business license, and below it, a little brass plaque I had custom made. It read, "Not family, fuel." Because I didn't become who I am in spite of what they did. I became who I am because of it.